So I've been thinking about doing a stage play. I've only written once before a stage play, but I've been thinking of doing another one. They're not easy, you know, especially if you have more than 4 or 5 characters. Not easy at all. Because once you undertake this, you are obligated to entertain people in some fashion for at least 2 hours. 2.5, perhaps 3 hours at most. After 3 hours, people get tired of sitting around. Anything less than 2 hours, people feel cheated somehow, I think. I think it should be an entirely different experience than going to a movie, don't you think? I would expect it to. But anyway, the idea I had, maybe 4 people, I don't know. Could be 3, could be 4. In either case, there'd have to be at least one woman. 1 woman and 2 men, or 1 woman and 3 men. Perhaps 2 women and 1 man. 2 women and 2 men. I don't know. What would be the point? I don't know that either yet. This would be a search for basic elements. An author in search of basic elements. You know, a lot of plays have dealt with the theme of identity. The mistaken identity, the ironically superimposed false identity, and all that. It all makes for some amusing stuff. Shakespeare did it often. And it's still used today from time to time. Then it can go to the more suspenseful side, I guess you could say. And so you have a man or a woman who's first one way and then somehow in some other way, and the two don't quite you wouldn't expect 2 different kinds of behaviors so distinct from one another in the same person, you see. So you wonder what's going on, what's happening here. You know, is it an act or is it real? And how do you determine that? How do you determine whether somebody is portraying what they hope you will see, or they're just being what you are seeing? There's a difference. There's a big difference. A woman I once knew said you can tell a person's lying because their pupils contract. Well, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm sure she quizzed her boy often enough when he was small. And she could tell. It's hard for a man to lie to his own mother. In fact, I would say it's almost an impossible task. They'll catch you every time. But I was good at it. I was good at lying. In fact, I thought about this before, recently, in fact, that I had somehow learned, by teaching myself, I had somehow learned to portray a very innocent person. I could portray an innocent boy, and I was more or less an innocent boy, but sometimes I did do things that ought not to have been done. And I didn't want to get in trouble for them, so I did a little bit of shifty footwork to preserve my reputation as a nice boy, you see. And usually I managed to do it. I had a BB gun once, and I stood in my backyard, on the edge of the hill that overlooked the valley that the Palouse Creek ran through. Had a grand view of the western horizon, you know. Nice sunsets oftentimes. But anyway, I shot the BB gun at Mr. Schroeder's garage window. Mr. Schroeder was a meter reader for Washington Water Power. That's what Vista was called back then. Washington Water Power. And in a day or two she quizzed me about it because Mr. Schroeder had come to the house saying that, well, Mrs. Stacy, your son has shot the window out of my garage. What are you going to do about it? And so she asked me, she looked me in the eye, and I looked her in the eye, and I said, no, I have no idea how that happened. And perhaps she wanted to believe me, and maybe that's why she did. Because I still, to this day, I don't think that I'd lied that well enough to convince her. She was a pretty shrewd woman. She could read my face very easily. So, I don't know, but she she stood her ground. She was a mother who wasn't going to be bullied by the next door neighbor, or a neighbor one house down. And he finally left, and that was all there was to it. Years later, I told her the truth, that I lied about that. I was, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old. God. So, in one sense, I suppose, or maybe several, acting is lying. Acting is lying. But how do you tell something genuine from artifice?